Ladies and gentlemen, what is good? It is Monday, May 19th. Do not adjust your sets. We are back, baby. The Black Baseball Mixtape podcast is here, and the Monday crew is here. Flipper Boys. I was at,
Hey,
I was at a wedding this
yeah,
weekend in Birmingham, Alabama, and I thought of you, my man, because look, the DJ did a great job, but I was like, hey, look, is he Flobo Boys?
that's what I'm saying.
Is he DJ Flobito?
Exactly.
How are you holding up, my brother?
Four-time SoCal award-winning DJ. Nah, man, things are good. I mean, you gave me the keys on Thursday. Got to do a little bit of a one-on-one, just chopping it up with Lewis Brinson. That was like kind of fun to hear his perspective on things. And apparently, I'm a hater when it comes to certain teams in lineups, but it's okay. It's fine.
Well, you did a fantastic job. Everybody check that out. We still got to upload that on the podcast, and we will do so. But you and Lou did a fantastic job on Thursday. There's a lot going on. I'm excited for everything that you're doing within the brief. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now you're doing well. We got to check in on our resident sister all about April right now. There's a lot going on, and between the Dodgers and the LSU softball team, I'm starting to worry about her. April, how are we holding up right now?
Y'all, not only that, I was like really sick last week.
Oh
So
no.
I had that. Then LSU lost twice and are completely out of regionals. And then the Dodgers got swept. And I was just like, Lord, if this is a sacrifice that I need for LSU boys to win the World Series, then so be it. I will take it. So,
All right. Well, look, there's a lot going on. 10th inning talk is going strong. We are really, really happy about all the progress that you are making, despite
yeah.
despite a very rough week. Happy to see you, Butterman Kane, right there, looking dapper in the in the
Hey,
in the F1 gear. They were just in Italy. So I don't
Mhm.
exactly know how Aston Martin finished, but how are you doing, my brother?
I'm excited actually. This week I'm gearing up to go to DC to see the Nats versus the Giants. Hopefully, I can catch you there. Some people that are in the black baseball community.
Let's go.
Shout out to the Nats for having some of the most prolific and
We're
exciting black
we're
players
gonna,
on the team.
we're gonna talk about the Nats here. You are right though. They've
Yeah,
got at least two of the
yeah,
most exciting, prolific black players in the league right now. At least two.
yeah. At least a
More
couple.
than that, look, Naz Nunez, whenever he gets some run, is
Yeah, and
really, really exciting.
when our guy Josiah comes back, maybe he can get a few innings from him. But yeah, I know he's on the mend. But when he comes back, it'll be great.
So the Black Nats right now, CJ Abrams playing at all-star level. James
Boy.
Wood is the best player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Bell, he's coming along. Every once in a while, he'll give you that power that they paid for. And like I said, Naz Nunez is a spark plug. I don't know if you saw
Mm-hmm.
what he was doing, especially last week. Naz Nunez is sparking some rallies and giving some of the best post-game interviews I have
Mm-hmm.
ever seen. Naz Nunez. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we really get going, speaking of post-game interviews and pre-game interviews and partners, we've got to thank our sponsors and our partners. That is Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance, Rebellion Harvest, Sunflower Seeds, Number Game Scorecards, Minority Prospects, Red, Black, and Green Baseball. Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds are some of the best in the biz. There is a code BBM or Black Baseball Mixtape. Number Game Scorecards is the best way to watch a baseball game live. Make sure you get the Black Baseball Mixtape scorecards as well. Black Baseball Mixtape or BBM on the access code there. Support our sponsors as we really, really appreciate and love them. Flibbo Voice. It was rivalry week, my man. Rivalry week. This is something new. For all of you not familiar, this is something new that Major League Baseball was doing this year. And some of it, I will say, first of all, I give it 9.5 out of 10 across the board.
What?
I do. I
Well,
give
what's based on what? The level of play, the
no, no, no.
timings?
Based on the matchups
Okay.
and what they were trying to do with the matchups and what they were trying to do to put kind of the teams of the regions together. I thought they did a really, really great job. There was only a couple of misses, and I think the misses were because you really didn't have a true rival. We're going to talk about this, Flobo. I know this is the first thing coming up. What was the rivalries and what wasn't? So we're going to jump to you and to talk about it. But just to let people know, if you were not familiar with what Major League Baseball did over this last weekend, it was basically 3-game sets, and they tried to build the biggest rivalries they could in baseball and put them together to have them play. Now, here was the thing. There were some teams that were left over, and they just had to match them up.
Right.
So they were, so we'll talk about this, Flow. But I was really, really excited about the concept. I would give the concept a 9.5. And what we're going to do is we're each going to go around. Obviously, Flobo, you have your special commentary on Rivalry Week, but we're each going to go around and pick one rivalry that we thought compelled us over the weekend. And you tell us why you thought it was a good fit or why you didn't think it was a good fit, why it was a hit, or why it was a miss. And then you can also overall score what you thought rivalry week was in MLB. Like I said, this is a new concept. I commend them for it, and I actually give it a 9.5. Flobo, I'm going to start with you because I knew this was something near and dear to your heart. What do you say about MLB rivalry week?
Well, I'm with the idea of a rivalry or derby day happens all the time in the sport. So I like the idea of something like that in MLB. I wish to me the marketing was kind of in the middle. Like I was aware of it, but I felt like it being the same weekend as Armed Forces weekend, I felt like some of that stuff got kind of lost in the shuffle. So it was like if you knew ball, you knew it was rivalry week, but it really didn't really permeate through. Some of those matchups kills. I mean, I know I'm a Mets guy, but I think having the Mets Yankee game be the weekend finale was a smart move on baseball's part because of the markets and all that. And the Crosstown Classic or the Crosstown Series or whatever makes sense if both teams were good. I like it.
Lots of drama in that Subway Series. I mean, here's the thing. That didn't need rivalry week because it's gonna hype itself given the circumstances. But continue on. But that is by far the marquee matchup of the entire.
No, but we'll get into that too. But I really feel like the misses really missed, right? And I felt like, you don't have to have all rivalries at the same time. You can have 2 weekends and say these are 7 rivalries of the weekend and rotate them. But I guess you got matchups I didn't see coming in a million years being considered a rival. You know what I
mean? Which one, Flobo?
Right, so let's elaborate.
Let's get on to it. So I'm going to get into the Athletics because they don't really have a city. So how can they have a rival? But the one that blows my mind is the Eddie Vedder Cup, where Seattle and San Diego are now rivals because Eddie Vedder somehow lived in both cities. That makes a rivalry? Like that to me sounds kind of cheap.
I can see that rivalry though. They both have very eccentric GMs. That like to trade. They both make some of the craziest trades with their prospects. So that's what I could see in that one.
This was an interesting one because and I'm going to bring in April prematurely on this because this is what they did. They decided to go LA. They wanted to go the freeway battle, right? So they wound up going Dodgers, Angels. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think that that's a conversation. April's our resident Dodger fan. Was that a miss? Should you have just gone Dodgers, Giants and called it the rivalry that is? So what was better, Angels, Dodgers, or should they have gone Dodgers, Giants?
It should have gone Dodgers, Giants. And I want to say that for me, it seemed like, especially since you're saying that this is the first time MLB has done this, it seemed as if MLB is taking a page out of college sports, because in college, they do have the rivalry week where you have these games. I think for me, where MLB missed the mark was they did it geographically for the most part, rather than based on the true essence of the rivalries that existed within the sports. So I get the idea of it, but let's say you have a Dodgers versus Giants, that would have been, great. And I see someone in the chat, you have a Braves versus Mets, that would have been great. You have a Red Sox versus Yankees, that would have been great. I would, for a rivalry week, that is what people tune in for. People are not tuning in to watch, those. Now, don't get me wrong. The freeway series,
strongly disagree.
People are watching Dodgers versus Angels. People are watching Yankees versus Mets.
Yes,
But
I
the true
strongly disagree on the
of
Mets Braves thing.
traditional baseball goes back to those particular, like, we hate the Giants. I told y'all this, I live to hate the Giants. So me having a rivalry weekend with them, oh, bring it on. So I can bring all the hate that goes right along with it.
Can I say that I actually understand. Again, I am maybe the look. Call me Commissioner Rob Manfred Cheatham on this because because I actually understand and really do appreciate the geographical aspect of it. Is that the biggest rivalry? Because again, you've got to like you got to find the rivalries. And here's the thing: rivalry baseball is basically everybody sniping at Kings. What I mean by that, so there's a handful of Kings and everybody sniping at them. So if you ask the Padres who's their rival, they're going to say the Dodgers. If you ask the Giants who's their rival, you're going to say the Dodgers. If you ask the Angels who's their rival, you're going to say the Dodgers. If you ask, you know what I mean, everybody in the NL East, it's probably in AL East, it's going to be the Yankees. You know what I mean? So there's only so much King sniping you can do. And with that said, I love the fact that they put so many geographic rivals in the same place and made it interesting, right? And I do think that you can actually build upon this because I do think if you start to look at what's happened again in the series that I was looking at the most between the Nationals and the Orioles, Nationals and Orioles aren't natural rivalries. They're not natural rivals. They don't play enough. They're not good enough. They don't play in the postseason enough to be like, oh, I hate that squad. But it was really cool because they're 40 minutes away and everybody kind of fights this battle. And I was a big fan of that. Now, before I go, and I'll let Malik jump in here as well, before I go too crazy, with that premise that everybody's going to be sniping at the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox, everybody's going to be sniping at them. You have to make like the other games matter. And
that's my problem.
I think the other games matter more now. I think there were more games that mattered this weekend than would have not mattered because they were like the Royals and the
Cards.
Yeah, the Royals and the Cards. Like that those stuff mattered more because of this, right? I don't know, Malik, I'm sorry, you jump in here. What do you think here about this rivalry week concept and how you would put the matchups together?
I thought they were lovely. I mean, these teams, the big rivalries are going to play anyway throughout the season. This is May, and so this is really where we find out which teams are probably going to, do well into October, and then we're going to find out which teams are not. Orioles. So I'm just saying, like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting, the matchups. One that I can point out, and I guess I can point out two matchups, really. The first one is in Houston versus Texas, where this was the only matchup where we had a tie because it was a 4-game series, the only 4-game series, I think, in rivalry week. But one game I want to point out because the offense wasn't really nothing to think about, but it was the pitching matchup between Jacob deGrom and Hunter Brown.
Yeah.
So
that's a great. So both of you guys are in Houston. That's no one really would say. I'm assuming that's a little bit like the Nationals and the Orioles. I would look at it. No one in the Rangers organization is like, man, I hate the Astros and vice versa.
Actually, it is. It
no,
is. Like
actually, it is a big thing. Yes.
Actually, it cheats. I can tell you a little bit about
do not like Dallas folks. And Dallas folks do not like Houston folks.
So, but I was thinking, isn't that so? Given that what you said, it's a little more bad blood than I thought. But isn't that cool to have that matchup?
It was. That was one of my favorites. That was one of my favorites from the weekend.
I think that out of all of the things that Nolan Ryan dreamed of when he kind of busted both of these teams, this is the matchup of his dreams. We have, Jacob deGrom. Actually, let me start with Hunter Brown. 8 innings pitched, 9 strikeouts, 1 run from a accidental home run. Out of Jake Berger. Then we have Jacob deGrom, 8 innings, 7 strikeouts, 0 runs, 5 hits. That was one of the best pitching matchups of the year. And so I'm glad that we were able to tune in. But another series I wanted to point out was Will Benson's revenge game. That one I love to see. I need to see that.
There you go. You had the Reds Guardians, right?
Reds
Cleveland
Guardians. That's right.
Cincinnati. I you know, obviously we'll talk about Will as much as humanly possible. We can talk about the Black Reds now. Reese Hines is in the outfield with Will Benson.
Yes.
Getting me really excited. And they just announced, the Reds just announced that Hunter Green will pitch Friday, so he'll be off the IL. So now we have a possibility of having Ellie De La Cruz, Will Benson, Reese Hines, Hunter Green all in the lineup. It's happening. I'm trying not to get too excited about the Reds.
Yeah.
And the Reds aren't all.
That was so that series, just seeing Will Benson get his confidence back, being on an MLB team, going down to the minors and just raking. And the fact that he was playing great defense, I'm just really excited about what he's going to do for the team. Another thing to point out about that series was just thinking about all the players that Cleveland gave up and the ones that they decided to keep, like Will Brennan, some players that they decided to trade, like Will Benson. I feel like he had a little bit of fire in that series, don't you think?
I mean, look, I as somebody that has met Will Benson, he's a friend of the podcast. He's been on the show a couple of times. Will Benson's tough. He's a cerebral guy. So his thing is like inner work is the best way I can say it. I don't think that he's a guy that does it feel good? I'm sure it feels good, but he's the type of guy that's like, if I'm doing the right things, if I'm putting in the work, it's gonna pay off. Right. He's that type of guy, from what I understand. He's not a person that would use that level. I mean, yes, he has confidence. He's obviously a confident individual, but it's one of those things where he's more focused on him. And I think the interesting thing, the biggest thing about the whole Will Benson thing to me is the relationship with Terry Francona. So, I mean, Terry's the guy that traded him, and then Terry's the guy that sent him down. And the whole time, Terry's been like, hey, look, Will Benson's going to be one of the best players that we have. Like, he keeps saying that. He's just got to get it. He's just got to get it going. And it looks like, for now, obviously, he's got it going in the right direction. And you just hope it stays. Consistency is the key in the major leagues. And, Will's in his prime now. And he's not like a young phenom. He's not James Wood. He's going to be a vet. You know what I mean? He's got to keep it going. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do because I'm excited about this. I'm going to go now. I didn't plan on doing this, but I'm going to go and just rate the rivalries. I'm going to go through the games, the matchups, and you tell me if they're hit or miss. And obviously, Flobo, if you feel extremely aggrieved by one of these matchups, you tell me.
Can I say something before you start this? I just want to say, like, the problem I have with this, and I think about it, just talking to all the good matchups from your side, is there's no stakes. So you put everything together, and there's actually going to be a Vetter Cup in one rivalry and bragging rights in another.
I think you made up the Vetter Cup thing. There's no.
No, it's real. Eddie Vedder is going to make a cup at the end of the series. They're doing it again. I feel like there should be
that part is ridiculous.
There should be some kind of stakes. They're going to do it.
I think that's ridiculous. I think that's dumb.
You're saying? Oh, yeah. Now you think it's dumb. Right,
I think that part's dumb. All right. Are we ready? Are we ready, guys? You can just say yay or nay. And obviously, some of these are super obvious. So we'll start with the marquee matchup. We know it was a huge, huge hit. Game's kind of uneventful outside of Devin Williams, but the actual matchup, Subway Series, Yankees versus Mets. I mean, that's an A+, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody has a problem with that, right?
I got a problem with. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine.
And also,
that guy's won. That's what happened.
Very happy to see Devin Williams back in.
Oh, yeah, yes. Devin Williams is getting back on track. I'm happy to see that, too. His ERA is around 7 now. He got a win in Sunday night's game, but I think it was 3 scoreless innings in the series, in some – I think that last Sunday night game, he pitched it before Bellinger hit the grand slam. So there were high stakes in that game, and he actually delivered. So, hey, look, they are hard on Devin Williams. That's a segment for another time, but the vitriol that black pitchers get, I don't know if we're talking about Simeon Woods Richardson, if we're talking about Taijuan Walker, if we're talking about Devin Williams, the Twitter vitriol that comes with black pitchers is absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Stroman too. Stroman brings it more on himself than the other guys.
I mean, I mean,
no disrespect.
Hey, now.
I love Trump.
Listen,
I mean,
But they be hard on him. They be hard
I
on
will
him.
not
They're
accept
hard
it.
on black. There's not. First of all, we know this. There's not that many black pitchers hurling in the game
Right.
right now. African American pitchers, and I'm telling you, they are hard. Like the social media, they go hard on guys that are doing not that bad of a job.
Taj Bradley.
Yeah.
Hard.
Green.
They go hard.
Even when Hunter Green does less than what he's doing now, they come down on him. You know,
Mhm.
his fastball's flat. It has no shape. You know, I listen to all that.
Honestly,
I've noticed it, and it's brutal.
and that's why I wanted to give the shout out to Devin Williams, because I want them to know that we support them despite what others do online. Like, you had a bad moment, that does not define who they are as pitchers.
I mean, he had several bad moments.
Listen,
very, very early. And this, you know,
I
how
mean,
we
we can't turn a blind eye to
oh.
10 ERAs as well. We got to do both. Like, we got to be balanced, and obviously we got to.
this is where the balance comes in.
But has
We're
Devin
here.
Williams let up a home run? Has he
What's
actually
that?
let up a home run this year? I don't think he has yet. So maybe.
Hey, look. Hey, who, Devin?
Yeah, I don't think he's let up a home run despite
It don't matter.
the
Look,
DRE. I'm pretty sure.
Guys, let's not jump off the boat. And what I mean by that is, man had an over 10 ERA for a reason. Like, I was watching the Knicks
11.
playoff game. What did he give up 6 against the Rays? I don't know if he gave up a home run or not.
I remember.
But it was, hey, look, it was tough for a while. Even he will admit to that. Now in April, I know, look, April's gonna stand by him, and she should.
Me too.
I get it.
yeah, we said Devin Williams.
But we can't look. We can't be. You know,
Zero home runs. Zero. I
Can't
just
be too
looked it up.
crazy. All right. We'll go through this a little bit faster. All right, so A+, obviously Subway Series. The Battle of Chicago, Northsiders versus Southsiders. White Sox, Cubs. I mean, Cubs. It's got to be an A+, right?
It's an A on paper. The games are flat. The games are
Right.
terrible for
Right,
Chicago.
but that's. I mean, again, hopefully this is something that will have longevity. Of course, you're gonna put the Cubs and the White Sox. Guardians, Reds, Battle of Ohio. I think it's an A.
Mm-hmm.
But not a lot of. I mean, there's history on both franchises there. I'm giving it an A. Pirates, Phillies.
Yes, and I see in the comments Paul Skeens. Yep. By the way, that's my brother. Hey, Lou. The Paul Skeens pitching matchup was fantastic. That was a really, really good one.
It was.
Yeah. So that's another A. Again, DC Orioles. I think that's an A. That's an A+. That's like I
don't know what you're judging this on. Just the fact that they're together, or the games themselves.
Are these good games for rivalry week? Because we're gonna get to some that are not A's. I'm
waiting.
The next one on the list, I would say, is a D or a C. Braves, Red Sox.
Yes, I didn't.
What happened there?
The history of the Braves. That actually makes sense. That makes more sense than Detroit and Toronto. Are you kidding me? The Braves played in Boston. That's what I understand. Look, you want hot rivalries? The Blue Jays should be in Seattle. That's when people come out with vitriol. But we get
so you really quickly, because I did not like the Braves Red Sox. You like this matchup.
That makes sense though. That makes sense though.
Because of the Boston Braves?
Yes, this is a historical element. I don't understand why San Diego is going up to Seattle or vice versa. I had no idea.
April and Malik, did you like the Braves Red Sox? You felt like there was some. Because again, I did not think of the Boston Braves until Flobo just opened his mouth.
You know, I equally dislike both, so I guess there's some parity with. I guess it didn't move me, but I'm okay with it.
So what do we rate that? If we're going B, C? Flobo, you're having me lean this to be a B rivalry now.
I'm saying B because at least it makes you can say it, you can explain it with a package, like our video package history.
At least we got Sale versus Crochet.
We did get Sale versus Crochet. I'm not rating these on good games. I'm rating these on, is this a good rivalry week matchup? And now, Flobo, you sold me. You've sold me.
Yes.
On
I'll take it. Sorry.
Let me give a suggestion too. I also think that it would be great that these rivalries for the future have names attached to them. Because I
Like a
like
cup.
when I hear Subway Series
Silver
or
boot.
Freeway Series or Beltway Series.
Better classic.
The
Apparently, we have.
better, the better.
Or that like
Have a name.
that brings a different element. So like Cubs, White Sox, there should be a name for that. I think that MLB, if you're listening, give these rivalries a name because that adds something to them.
Well, they did
Alright.
some. I will say Fox and MLB had a graphic and they named some of them: Ohio
Yeah.
Cup, Citrus Series, Lone Star
Yeah.
Series. But
Yeah,
I'm with
they've got
April.
some
If you want
names.
to Cubs, give them
Names
real
ain't
names.
cool.
They've got
Shout
some
out to
names.
Crosstown
Names.
Classic. Crosstown Classic.
All right. Hold on.
No?
We're,
All right, I'm sorry.
all right. Florida. I don't know what you're calling this one, but the Tampa Bay Rays versus Miami Marlins.
Yes, I love that.
Yes.
The humidity cup. That's right.
Oh my
Malik, why do you
God.
love this so much?
Do you the marriage between these teams? Peter Bendix used to be in the Tampa Bay Rays organization. They're literally trying to be the same thing. The Marlins are trying to be the new Rays. These are two expansion franchises, right?
Right.
Which Florida team is going to be the one that spends the least and makes the most out of what they can have? And so I think
we're
it's
all kind of
cool.
rivalry, man. The race to the bottom.
Yeah, we have to create some. Who's the Rays rival? Who are they rival?
Right. The Yankees.
Nobody.
Everybody's a rival of the
Yeah,
Yankees
exactly.
at this
There's
point.
Kings
The
fans.
Astros are a rival of the
You know
Yankees.
what? You know what? I'm gonna based off of what we just talked, the criteria that we just talked about, which is making a good rivalry, putting them geographically together. I'm gonna say okay. I'm gonna give this now to
What's
B.
the A?
He goes A. You're gonna go A. You're gonna go A.
These
All
are
right.
two, yeah.
All right. Angels Dodgers. Where did you rate this as a rivalry?
A.
Okay, so you like this, April. You like the
I
matchup.
love it.
plus.
I love
A
it
plus.
every year.
But you said you'd rather have them play the Giants in rivalry week.
Yes. For rivalry week, I would rather them play the Giants because the level of that exists between those two teams, you can't get nothing but passion that arises from it.
So, but again, if you're looking at what Major League Baseball is doing, they're basically, if you're in the same city, you're gonna play each
right,
other.
the geographical thing.
So yeah, I'm gonna give this an A. Flobo, I'm looking at you. Do you have a problem?
Sorry, I was
Do you have
thinking
a
like
problem with Angels Dodgers?
no, I don't. I like it. I was like, but actually, to get to both stadiums, you need to take at least 2 freeways. I was like, why is it called the Freeway Series? But no,
Yeah.
I like it. This is actually one of my favorites. I go to more Angel games a year anyway, so
Right. You said it's
Yeah.
easier to get to.
it's like it's 40 miles away, but like you pull up to the curb and you walk in. Like Dodger Stadium is on top of a hill around a parking lot inside of a park, and you're like, man, this sucks, So
Do we need to spend any time on the fact that the Angels swept the Dodgers for the first time?
this whole time, let's do
The
it.
Dodgers getting swept at home is apparently extremely rare.
Frauds,
Yeah.
Kings of LA, Angels. Let's do it.
There's been much marketing on this. I noticed MLB's been kind of quiet about that.
Yeah, Angels,
Yeah.
Kings of LA.
The Angels are kings of hell. All right, let's look again. Let's not go overboard. The Angels are
They're
The
making the
Angels
playoffs. I said
Black,
Angels
black
are
and
20. The Angels are 20 and 25.
greatness.
The Dodgers are 29 and 18.
Slip
This
it.
is not something that's going. It's a nice 3 games for the Angels. A big
Yes.
surprise, obviously.
To who?
But does this mean any? Does the actual games mean anything? The 3 in a row here.
I think that's why I think the
I
rivalry
think
league is fun.
Malik is saying yes.
I say yeah, I think it's fun because this could be. I mean, we don't know yet, right? But this could be the spark that hits the Angels. You took on the world champions and beat them 3 times in a row.
in their
Ron's
home.
probably using that all season. Like, come on.
Yeah, I think it means a lot because beginning of the season, before even the season even started, everyone was saying, "Oh, the Dodgers, it's just unfair. They're getting everyone. They're going to win 150 games." And it just shows that baseball is a long season, and a team that is doing poo poor like the Angels were, even without Trout, can beat the Dodgers in a 3-game series. And so that's why I think it's it's pretty big deal because it just shows that it's anyone's game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it matters to the Angels. Doesn't matter that much to the Dodgers. I'm not sure. They're still sitting at like the best record in the National League, right?
It should matter to them.
The
It's
arms.
Look,
It should matter.
that is true. The arms are an
arms.
issue. Shohei is still playing at a pace that is completely out of this world.
Yeah.
It's been fun to watch. Shohei Ohtani is actually really fun to watch. you know, you got to figure out the rest. You got to figure out the rest of them. I think a lot of the other guys have come back down to reality. We were talking about Teoscar Hernandez,
Mm.
you know, Freddie and Mookie, but I do feel like the Dodgers still, as good as they are very good. It does seem like this particular Dodger team is still searching for what's going to really make them. They don't look. Basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you watch them play day in and day out, they do not look like a well-oiled, most dominant team. You look at their record, and they've got a really good record, but they do not look like a team that everybody's looking at and saying those guys are unbeatable.
And I think that that's a normal perception for the Dodgers, because typically you see, oh my gosh, you have all these names, but it's putting them together at the right time, figuring out how you want the lineups to go, figuring out where you want the players to actually play, players not being like Conforto having a very difficult time getting into a streak. And as he said, the Dodgers made some very difficult decisions. So as much as we think that the Angels series didn't affect them, they DFA'd both Austin Barnes and Chris Taylor this week. And then they brought back up Teoscar Hernandez and who else? Tommy Edman. So one thing that the Dodgers in both last year and this year have faced were injuries, and playing through those injuries and still making it past that. So yeah, I think that that Angel series was a wake up, like we can't let this impact us in this way. We got to get back together and get in sync.
Yeah, that's huge. These are World Series team players, you know, Chris Taylor and Austin Barnes. Like, that can't be emphasized enough how huge that was. But you got a couple of young pups coming up in that team, so I can see why they made those decisions.
So, kind of the battle of the Bay, right, or the battle of the former Bay. It makes sense if the Athletics are still in Oakland, less now in Sacramento, but they put the Giants and the A's together. I'd still give it a C, B, given the circumstances, right?
Hey, this team, the Athletics, don't have a city. Why do they have a rival? They exist on some kind of extraterrestrial plane.
Yeah,
come on, MLB.
They gave them the rivalry of last year, right? They gave them the rivalry of, and again, most people geographically, if you know, you know, like Oakland and San Francisco are basically much closer
apart
most,
across that bridge.
Yeah, much closer than most cities. So it was
2 hours,
it's a real thing, right? Like, it was a real thing. I understand what it is. This is the one where it's going to really get Flobo upset. They put the Mariners against the Padres. I also feel like that's just, they had no place to go.
They did a press release saying Eddie Vedder is going to make a trophy at the end of the series. Clue. Who was asking if Eddie Vedder had any kind of stock in baseball? Would you ask that?
I did not.
I get it. I get it. You got to get people together. I understand that. But if you're the Padres, or if you're the Mariners, I can tell you Toronto fans hate you. That could be something. And I know you can do a little more finessing, but for Seattle, that would have been a bigger matchup than San Diego, a team which is a neutral.
Can I point out one thing? These are two franchises that have not won a ring.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe let's just put that out there. Maybe that's
like
something
that.
I don't want to
very
off
angsty franchises that haven't won a ring ever. So maybe that's just one thing.
The no ring rivalry.
That's terrible. You had no dubs.
Let's jump to, since you brought up the Blue Jays a couple times, Flobo. They actually paired the Blue Jays with the Tigers. Do you like that or you don't like that?
Actually, on my last baseball trip, I did both teams back to back, so it was quick. It's a 7-hour bus ride, $40.
And that's why they did it.
That's why they did it. I get it. I get it. If every team has to have a rivalry, it's not bad. But it's like, is anyone in Detroit being like, "Oh man, I'm Blue Jays, man"? I don't know. Like, I don't see it. Unless let's take April's idea. If we take April's idea and have cups and have points or do something special, like an in-season tournament or something, this makes no sense.
So where do we rate it?
C.
See?
I'm saying that this is the beginning, but this is just something to be able to improve upon. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. I don't think
we can switch these.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying make it more interesting. Like, change the names, give the names more meaning. So I'll give you a perfect example. In college football, they have like LSU versus Arkansas, and I'm sure y'all like, why would they have that? Well, they have like a boot battle, and then after the football game, whoever wins the game, they get the boot, and
Hence
they
Eddie
go
Vedder.
with that.
Flocko, you are there. Eddie
Vedder
Vedder.
does not count.
Eddie
He's not
Vedder
history.
makes-
Not
He's
that.
not culture.
Now
Is there a
Not
Ja
that.
Rule Cup somewhere,
Now that
Cheats?
April
Huh?
now that April has explained this, Eddie Vedder now has a role. I feel like what you're saying now.
Even the Iron Bowl between Auburn and Alabama,
Right.
like that's a big deal. But give them, and look, I'll be able to help. I am more than happy to help with these names to move this forward. But because I want this to work, but
So
you got to
all right.
refine this. That's the word.
Yeah.
So
April's right.
here's the most random odd man out teams without a home. The Diamondbacks Rockies.
Rocky Mountains. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
You just said I want. You
They're
said,
right
I just,
there. Yeah, the
yeah,
desert.
you just said I want
There you go.
geographic.
I love it.
There
That's
you
perfect.
go. All
The
right.
Rocky
Hey,
Mountain
look,
Cup.
It's
You
in the
got
desert.
there.
Who's gonna win?
Desert series. Perfect.
Milwaukee, Minnesota.
They're
I guess
regional.
The beer
Well,
series.
yeah.
I don't know. Like,
You know, the Midwest. You know,
yeah.
So,
Minnesota.
so
Nice.
again, if all of these scores are getting high marks across the board from you guys, then I feel like my 9.5 out of 10 is really good.
The issue with rivalry weekend is that there's no stakes. And on paper, some of them, we went through them, but on paper, some of them seem heavier than the others. But there's like no reason to play harder on a rivalry weekend than any other weekend. And it was also Armed Forces Day. So it's like, all right, I'm tuning into KC versus St. Louis. Why should they care? Why is it important to them as players? Why should they push any harder?
Because where are the bragging rights? That's
Right.
the thing. Where
Different
are the bragging
locations,
rights?
yeah.
I think, hey, look, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I think the question is, do major league players, because again, college is different. It's a whole different vehicle. It's a whole different spirit. College baseball, college softball, college football, those things matter on a different level than they do in basically all of professional sports. There's a handful of NFL games where it's like, ooh, Washington, Dallas, they really hate each other.
Right.
You know what I mean? But there's not, they basically the circumstances with the professionals, the circumstances in the teams, that's what makes the rivalry. It's Mets Yankees mattered more this weekend because of Juan Soto.
Yeah.
yes.
Again, there's going to be like if they figured out a way, if there was a, I don't know, Bobby Witt gets traded to the Cardinals and everybody's turning their back, then the Cardinals Royals matters more than it would just, you know what I mean? Like Chicago, a great example. The Cubs and the White Sox would matter more if both teams were really good. Like really good.
So those are unfair comparisons to me because those were the historic ones, right? Subway Series, Freeway Series, Crosstown Classic. Those 6 teams.
They all got names.
Yeah, the ones that have names have been there for like 20
names.
They've been there for 20 years. But to be honest with you, I'm asking you a question and swap out the Juan Soto thing with Minnesota, Milwaukee. Right? It's not a bad idea. It's just if I'm in Milwaukee, why should I care about beating the Twins more than the fact that's the game of the day on rivalry week?
Right.
Well, judging with all the sweeps, I think that a team like the Dodgers would have wished that they won them 3 games during rivalry week that didn't matter. That's why I'm saying like it does matter because if you go in there and we see all the brackets, we see the scores, there's been too many sweeps. Too many sweeps. The Orioles were not supposed to be swept.
Last thing I'll say about this, because this has been really fun. Last thing I'll say about this is, where do the fans play into this, right? And what I mean by that is, because again,
they play a big role.
One of the things that, Flobo, you mentioned, the ones that are kind of the historical unfair comparisons, those fan bases really care.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
and I think that was where my heart got pulled a little bit with Boston Braves, the Boston in Atlanta, because I feel like if you had put a better, like again, I don't know if there was one, but if you could put a more meaningful, like the Red Sox fans are pretty aggressive, the Braves fans are pretty aggressive. I don't think they're aggressive towards each other. Like I don't think the fans got it right. Like you sold me on the history of it, but I
Yeah.
don't think the fans were like, "Oh, I hate Boston," in
No, they
Atlanta.
don't.
Like, we have to win this game. But I do think, like, the White Sox Cub fans, they don't like each other, right? I feel like this is what we'll transition to the Orioles as well. But I do think that's where the Nats and the Orioles, if you can find a true Nats fan in DC, because it's a transit community where nobody lives there from
I found one.
Washington DC at all. But the Oriole fans, really care, right? Like I think that was the thing. I think that they wanted those Masson bragging rights, if you will, the Masson television network bragging rights. And so if I'm looking at this, and maybe we'll do this another time, I don't know if the Cincinnati Reds fans and the Cleveland Guardian fans really care. I'm assuming the Pirates and the Phillies fans care. Like I just feel like I assume they do.
What are they fighting for? Harrisburg? Like Sheets? Like ain't nobody consider them rivals.
That's why if you give it a name, it gives it more meaning. It gives it something of value.
April's right.
I feel like it didn't matter. Look, it didn't matter in LA until the Angels won all 3 games. Now the Angel fans really care.
They had Ohtani for a couple of years too. That was also important.
That was it. Hey, look, I got one for Texas, the Lone Star Series.
That's what they call it. That's what they call it.
Hey, that woman.
No, that's what they call it, though. That's the name of it.
Before they start
it's already there?
Yeah, it's called the Lone Star Series. Yeah. I'll still pay her. But that's what
it's a real rivalry.
I got names. And yes, that's a real rival. And then one last thing before we move on.
Yeah.
It makes fans excited to go, like, what are you doing this weekend, girl? I'm going to the Lone Star Series. I don't know about y'all. Like, people know I'm going to the Freeway Series. You giving it adds something different to it. I know when you say Subway Series, exactly what you're talking about. If you're trying to build the rivalry week, then you build it with meaningful things.
You know what? Here's the rub and the challenge about this, because I understand exactly what you're saying and why you're saying it. I think the challenge, though, in my mind, is that you're still trying to build a college rivalry situation in a professional sports.
No, we're trying to attract people who identify things based on names and also based on the idea that we are better because we've won this series more than you this amount of times. Next time the Astros and Rangers play, you already know. Well, we done won the Lone Star Series. How many times? How many times you won it?
Yeah,
why not use the Carlos method?
That
Carlos method makes a lot of money.
To the rivalry.
Yankees Red Sox.
Red Sox not even that good anymore.
No. Listen to me, guys. Let's not throw away. Let's not throw away. When Alex Rodriguez was rolling old man Zimmer down the street. It was but it was by far the biggest rivalry in all of baseball. For what?
Like 20 years ago.
Right. But it had a run, and it had a ripple effect. Red Sox Yankees had a ripple effect where I will never forget. I think maybe after that ALCS series, they played the next year in spring training, and it was like the first time I'd ever seen like standing room only, lines on the block in a national televised spring training game, right? And people were saying it matters. How do you build? Like, I think that I look at things like that. I look at like the Subway Series. I look at like Yankees Red Sox. I look at some of these really, whether it was the Braves Phillies, Braves Mets. Those are baseball rivalries that I look at that I say are like built on a professional sports platform rivalry. And it's good teams, good fan bases, great product, and it's like I don't like I get the college aspect of having. It's just, to me, in my mind, that stuff is such on a different level of meaning because it's just so personal to those fan bases. Like you're never gonna get LSU,
Bama, or whatever.
Right? It's just a different level. Alabama, Auburn means different. It's like, because again, those are games. Let's just say those are games where it's like it does not matter where the records are. Throw them all out. If I win this game, like people have saved their jobs because they won one game all season. I think it's. I don't know. This is gonna be me. I just think it's harder to build.
let me also say, baseball is growing. And as the sport continues to grow, you want to add more elements to it that give fans a chance to be able to celebrate it in different ways. And I feel like that's what Rivalry Week
Yeah,
is
this is what they're trying to do.
intended to
You're
be
right.
able
You're
to
right.
do.
You are right. I mean, this is one of their very small ways of trying to grow the game. And again, I thought it was very cool. I thought it was a cool
Yeah.
element. I rated it really high across the board.
Well, I'm not it's not a soccer podcast, but in MLS, which was founded in '96, they have rivalry cups, and they'll create franchises and markets that already exist. So I'm in LA. I love the Galaxy. They brought LAFC. It didn't work for 2 years, and then bam, it became a rivalry. Same with New York FC. So it's possible, it's doable. But if you're going to put these random teams together, I need a better reason than a front man of what, Pearl Jam, 9 Inch Nails, to be the reason
And
why y'all rivals.
all roads go back to Eddie Vedder.
Give me a
Let's take
reason.
quick
Give me a Brandon. April's right. That's what I'm saying.
let's take a quick break here, ladies and gentlemen. You are checking out the Black Baseball Mixtape podcast. Our partners are Stilo Sports. Make sure you check them out. They have torpedo bats, ladies and gentlemen. Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance, Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds, Numbers Game Scorecards, Minority Prospects, Red, Black, and Green Baseball as well. And I think I've got them all. Make sure you check them all out. I am really, really excited about our partners and what the Black Baseball Mixtape is doing. Before we transition and we go to full April's Corner with softball, one of the things I'm not excited about is the Baltimore Orioles.
Yay.
Let's quickly talk about the fall guy. The biggest fall guy in baseball since Ipe has to be Brandon Hyde.
Fall guy.
He vacation strays in prison.
Biggest fall guy in baseball since Ipe has to be Brandon Hyde. Let's talk about it really quickly. The 15 and 30 Baltimore Orioles, which are 11 and a half games back in the AL East behind the first place Yankees. High expectations. High expectations. 2 years ago, they won over 100 games. Last year, I believe they won 93 games. They make it to the playoffs both years. 2 years ago, Brandon Hyde's named AL Manager of the Year. AL Manager of the Year, and rightfully so. Brandon Hyde also is the man that I think he'd been with the program. He's been head coach for 6 years. He oversaw the entire rebuild. So he's there. He's the guy that's there when they were battling for draft picks here. Bad. He gets all the way obviously to a place where we went into the season. I went into the season saying that the Orioles were going to be in the World Series. They were my World Series pick. The second craziest pick of the prediction show because Flobo predicted that the Angels were going to make the playoffs. Yeah. I still have a better shot, I believe.
Kings of LA.
Nah.
But I say all that to say the team this offseason did not, lose Corbin Burns. They did not sign pitching that has helped them. They signed Charlie Morton and Sagana. Sagana has not been bad, but they Tyler O'Neill hasn't really worked out as much. The only player that's hitting the ball worth his salt is Cedric Mullins, and he was the guy that took it the absolute hardest that Brandon Hyde was let go. He said he personally felt like he had let Brandon Hyde down. The Orioles are a mess. The Orioles are a mess, but I will go on record, and I've gone on record in the Finish Your Breakfast series to say I believe this firing is wrong. I feel like this firing is out of place, and I do feel like I know this is Major League Baseball, and I know there's high expectations, but I do feel like, 2 years ago, last year, overseeing the rebuild, he earned at least a full season. I don't care if they were the White Sox or the Rockies. He deserved a full season and maybe a season after that to come back. Flobo, you're looking at me like I'm crazy. Do you think that Brandon Hyde's firing was warranted?
Look, I understand because I've been there too. Because the last manager of the New York Metropolitans, Buck Showalter, had 101 wins in a season and then collapsed. And the next year after that wasn't bad. And you didn't say he earned it with all that goodwill. He earned all the opportunities in the world. And general managers are never going to come out and say, yeah, my bad. You have to write this. At the beginning of our prediction show, at the beginning of the year, you had the Orioles somehow going further than anyone else. If you don't
I
do
did.
that, any organization sacks the manager. So you can say firing is wrong till the cows come home. That's the captain of the ship. And if you don't get the dubs, that's the first one to go. Is that wrong? Maybe, but I can't tell you that that's a bad decision because your manager is the guy who's supposed to be out in front. When the Dodgers get swept by the Angels, no one's going to be like, man, Friedman, he's cool, man, right? No, people are saying, oh, it's got to change. You got to make some moves, you got to make some moves and that kind of things because people have high expectations, bro. You can't sit there and say, oh, it's not right. He has to go.
If the Dodgers go in a free fall this year, I would
Correct.
say, and if the Dodgers go in a free fall, does Dave Roberts, does he get fired?
He doesn't get fired because the Dodgers aren't like
Right.
that. But you can't knock
they're not
the
too good.
Orioles who are not the Dodgers. You can't use
Right.
you can't knock them. They got skittish and they made a move. I think that he will get hired again. Hired to very good
He's already
manager.
taken a job at Townsend.
Damn,
It was
done.
announced today.
Okay.
Right now, and he'll be back in Major League Baseball. But he
Right.
already accepted a job as a special advisor at Townsend Baseball for grad students or something.
Just real
Wow.
quick, the Baltimore Orioles had to make a move to tell their fans, "Don't leave us, don't turn on us," and that's how it's done.
I'm sorry. What fans in their right
fans?
mind? What fans in their right mind think that this is the right thing to do? I don't know if fans are
it's
sitting
a
there.
lot
I
of
think there's been some
Yeah,
fans. Yeah.
yes.
Fans were upset. Fans were upset that they fired Brandon Hyde.
Yeah. Well,
But-
I would invite you to
April and
follow
Malik, go ahead. Jump in here. Do you think this
Go
is
ahead,
the right
Malik.
thing to do?
And so this is complicated because if you think about the season in which they won 101 games, let's all be honest, the Orioles were not supposed to win 101 games in that season. They were not supposed to win that many. But they did, but they were not expected to win that many games. Mike Elias was from our Astros organization, and he's really good at building up a farm, and that's what he did with the Astros when he was under Lundhound. Now we see he's having somewhat of like a Chaim Bloom type of situation where he knows how to build up a farm, but when it comes to building a major league product, he's finding trouble. And I think the problem that the Orioles came up with was when the ownership change had a little bit of issue, wasn't going to be sure if they were going to be sold or not. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a trickling down because Mike Elias, if it's in his best interest, he wouldn't have fired his own manager because isn't that basically firing yourself in a way for a GM? And so
some would argue that Mike Elias should be the guy that too get fired. What
and
did
that's
he do?
yeah. So I think that if it really got to a desperation point, I think it was within the organization's interest to let go of Brandon Hyde. The players love him. There's no doubt about that. But I think the organization with their new leadership and their new ownership might be looking to go in a different direction. They might even just get Joe Madden out of retirement. Who knows? Or even what's that? Girardi. They might find him.
Oh, Girardi. That is an emergency button on that.
Malik, you brought up a good point because the year they won over 100 games, they weren't supposed to win that many games. But the calling card for the Orioles was they were bringing their lunch pail to work every day. Mm-hmm. And so they were catching teams, I think, during that time where it was like, man, the Orioles are playing hard every night. And they were catching teams in the regular season that might have thought coming into Baltimore they could let their guard down. And that year, especially 2 years ago, and they would wind up winning a series because they played so hard every day. There's something about this year's team. I don't know if it's the fact that they're not a surprise anymore. Again, 2 years with that record, getting in the playoffs, people now coming to Baltimore being like, yo, we got to be up. Like, we're playing the Orioles. As opposed to 2 years ago when they won the 100 games, nobody was doing that. Nobody thought that they were going to be, you know what I mean? They were like, this is a up and coming team, and the Orioles would surprise them, right? I feel like in some ways you're seeing a little bit about this in Detroit right now, where Detroit is by far Detroit's the best team in the American League, but it's also kind of like I don't know if teams are going in Detroit being like they know they're good, but they're also like Detroit's playing hard every day. I don't know if they're like. What's the word?
You don't think they're afraid of Detroit?
Not yet.
I think their teams are very afraid of Detroit.
It might be now. No, I think after the start, they might be now. Okay. But it's
especially Scoob.
They definitely weren't scared of them last year, right? When Detroit was making this run. And now they're like, and they might not have believed them in the first half of this season until Detroit starts beating everybody's butt, right? And so now you're like, and I feel like what's happening is a little bit, and I do think, I say all that to say, the Orioles of 2 years ago, Orioles of last year, Detroit that's happening right now. These are teams where there are no days off. You go and you play those teams and you know you're going to be in for a fight to the finish for 9 innings. Something about this Orioles team. I don't know if it's Hyde. I don't know if it's just the team's a little bit more veteran, a little bit more. But I watched them day in and day out, and there was no, like, there's no, like, confidence in the fact that we're going to play harder than you today.
True.
Like, I watched all 3 of those games with the Nats, and I felt like the Nats played harder all 3 games.
Whose fault is that with the managers, though?
Yeah, it's
That's the
like
manager's fault.
So I say all that to say, like, yeah,
Dang.
yes, but it's also, I do think the players I think the players got Hyde fired. I think that's where Mullins takes it really hard. I also think that I do feel like Elias and those guys didn't give him enough.
Yeah.
Like Charlie Morton, Saganu, who was the other guy that they traded Stowers and Norby for? The pitcher.
He's not even in the majors. You talking about Trevor Rogers?
Yeah, Roger. Like I'm just like you're looking at this.
So Cheats, you're saying that the Orioles didn't treat Brandon Hyde the way that the Tigers are treating AJ Hinch when he had those losing teams, and they kind of stuck with him, and he had to make it work.
And I think the thing is even more difficult for me is Hyde was the guy they did stick with when the expectations were low, right? When they're building this up, Hyde is the guy. Hyde rode some real bad seasons.
Yeah, I was there.
Trash seasons to get to this point.
I was in the stands.
Yeah, it was quiet.
Right. And then they get to 15 and 30. Well, it wasn't 15 and 30 before he got fired, but it was, I don't know, 15 and 26 or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, we got to do something. I feel, I guess I'll leave it with this. I feel like the Orioles brass panicked. And again, Hyde was the fall guy.
I agree.
And can I say that on paper, if your team goes as far as it did last season, you try to do small tweaks, what the Orioles did, and the results were so bad, and you said it yourself, it looked pretty listless out there. Somebody has to go. You could do a hitting coach, you could do a bench coach, but someone on the field has to go.
Somebody's head had to roll.
Yeah.
Can I also say for me, like in watching this, and by the way, if you haven't checked out my latest podcast episode, I actually talk about this, all about a right and a wrong way. I think that this is a trend that we are seeing right now within Major League Baseball. We saw it with the Pirates, we saw it with the Rockies, and we're seeing it right now with the Orioles. Upper management is doing the bare minimum, and they're expecting these managers to do the best that they can with the resources that they have. But look how the upper management is leading. And you're putting the pressure on your players to perform when everybody else around you is improving at levels beyond what you're willing to do. And for me, that is where these organizations are failing, because all you're doing is you're going to fire a good manager in Brandon Hyde, wash, rinse, repeat. You're going to put somebody else in there, but you're still not improving the part that needs to be improved. And that is you as an organization investing better within your team to put them in a position to be able to win. So for me, honestly, sometimes whenever I see these managers get fired, I'd be happy for them, because I don't want them in positions like this where the organization is not going to fully invest for them to be able to have the opportunity to be able to win. And this isn't to say that the players on the field are not able to do it, but all teams should be able to be put in a position to be able to win every time they go on the field. And that's just not what is happening. And so for me, yes, I felt that the firing was unfair for him, because it's noted that management is like, well, they want me to spend money, but I ain't gonna do it. So what exactly is he supposed to do?
Make it enough.
Yeah.
Look,
I think
Shout out to Will Venable, by the way.
Yeah, Flobo gave me an idea that I didn't even think about. And you're right. I mean, maybe you just go in there and fire the hitting it coach and the pitching coach, fire the bench coach and the bullpen coach. But I do think Hyde was a guy that should have survived this
Yeah,
part at
I
least,
agree.
and should have
he
survived
was
the
a good
entire season.
manager.
So, with that said, let's switch gears again. That was a lot of fun as well. Outside, to my chagrin of the pain that I'm feeling internally uh, with the Orioles. But let's switch gears completely. We are in a part of the season where it is all about April's favorite time. It is the NCAA softball championships. The regionals just took place over the weekend. There were some absolutely phenomenal regionals, some phenomenal action. The super regionals are set. The super regionals, for those that don't know, so really quickly in April, I'll let you take the show away here. But the regionals are really exciting because there's four teams and a host, and then they play a double elimination round robin tournament. The team that comes out of that then it goes to what's called super regionals. Super regionals start Thursday, and it's basically the best out of three in these kind of powerhouse two teams powerhouse series and the super regionals. And then the winner of the super regionals, they go to Oklahoma City and play in another double elimination tournament, which is the softball College World Series, which is equivalent to the baseball College World Series that takes place um,
In Omaha.
in Omaha. I wanted to say Rosenblatt Stadium, but they don't play in Rosenblatt anymore. So that's how old I am. Um, Super regionals are set, and obviously we talked about April's talked about this a lot on her show. We talked about a lot on this podcast as well. The Oklahoma Lady Sooners are going for a five-peat. They made it to the Super Regional. They will be hosting a Super Regional. I don't know if we wanted to go through the regionals, but I have them in front of me. A couple of interesting ones I know that April will point out. Let's do this. April, you start and you tell us anything that you want us to know about the regional recap, and then we'll jump into a little bit about the super regional talk as well.
Yes, I'm also going to plug myself again because if you haven't listened to my podcast episode that details postseason softball and baseball, please check that out because that gives you a great rundown of it. But this past weekend, the ladies played in regionals and it was absolutely phenomenal. But I also want to go back because Cheats called me because Texas A&M and OU did not play the final game that they were supposed to play for the conference championship due to the weather.
Yeah,
And
the SEC
so,
championship, yes.
yeah, they were both named SEC co-champions, but ultimately, based on the rankings RPI, Texas A&M got the 1 seed and OU got the 2 seed. So as you're going through the playoffs, the first set of regionals, you have the four teams within each regionals bracket, and LSU was known to have one of the tougher brackets and they lose twice to Southeastern University, which is literally like 45 minutes away from LSU. They do not have the amount of resources, et cetera, that LSU does, but they played hard. And I will be honest, LSU looked real lethargic out there for both games, but Southeastern took advantage of every single opportunity and they deserved the win. So this is shock number one of the weekend. And then Sunday comes and just blows everything out of the water. I am literally watching Liberty University versus number one Texas A&M, and they just keep showing a number one seed has never ever lost regionals and not made it to super regionals. And honestly, y'all, Liberty University should have won that first game and just ended it there, but they didn't. They make it to game 7 and Liberty takes down the number 1 seed Texas A&M. And I mean, even TikTok like was going crazy over this because it no one expected the number 1 overall seed to lose to a mid major. This is not a major, a power 4 school. So that happened. Then you have Ole Miss, who is nobody even thinking about Ole Miss in the Arizona regional. Ole Miss wins in the Arizona regional. So they are also going to super regionals. And then the final walk off was like midnight this morning. Oregon walks off Stanford University.
Mm.
So it was just a crazy round of regionals. OU won as expected. Niger Kennedy and Texas Tech, they won as expected. So now with super regionals, you're going to have 16 teams playing. And as Cheat said, it's the best 2 out of 3. At the same time, this week for the fellas, you have conference championships beginning. So please make sure that you are tuned in to all of that. If you are somebody who loves baseball and softball and MLB starts too late, you can always start off with the college sports
Mhm.
as well.
So no, this is really good, and so let's quickly go through some of this because there's a couple things that stand out to me, and you mentioned one of them, but the absolute dominance of the SEC. So if you look
Yeah.
at the super regionals, the conference of the now, and everybody knows SEC. There's only like three
Yeah.
conferences in all of college sports now. It's basically the ACC, the SEC, like the big
Big
whatever the
10
big
and
is.
Big
It's like
12.
the
That's
big.
it.
It's like all the rest of them.
Right.
But like with Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, this
Mm-hmm.
is what it does. The super regional, the first super regional we're looking at is in Norman, and it's Oklahoma, Alabama. That's
Yeah.
SEC versus SEC. The Gainesville super regional is Florida versus Georgia. That's
Mm-hmm.
SEC versus SEC. The Fayetteville super regional is Arkansas Ole Miss. That's SEC SEC. And
Mm-hmm.
really quickly, Ole Miss freshman pitcher Malia, I want to say it's Galchino. She is a Tony's Promise graduate. I saw her pitch in the
Oh,
Tony Promise
wow.
team in
Mm.
Seattle, and she is the leading freshman pitcher in the country, I believe.
Mm.
And she has been an ace for Old Miss. She is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic, but she's one of the girls that are a Tony Promise. Matter of fact, we could do a whole thing. Precious is on Georgia's softball team.
Remember you
She's a
talked
Tony
about that.
Promise girl. Tina Malloy and I believe Oklahoma has Tony's Promise girls on it. It's phenomenal. I'll stop there. But anyway, we're going. So Norman Regional, Gainesville Regional, Fayetteville Regional, all SEC teams. One person we have, I don't know if we've talked about it. April, correct me if I'm wrong. Have we talked about Miss? I'm going to say it wrong. I want to make sure I say it right. Kennedy over at Texas Tech.
Nigel Kennedy, Texas Tech. It's my
So
girl.
I've
Mhm.
seen, I've seen about. I'm not exaggerating. I've seen about 5 features as I've been watching the regionals, all about Naja and obviously the transfer from Stanford to Texas Tech. The 1 million. I think they were finished up on the
Yep.
$1.2 million NIL deal for a
Yeah.
softball player to come play. She's lived up to everything imaginable, but Florida State's a really good baseball team.
Yeah.
That's the Tallahassee Super Regional. Texas Tech is there. So Najee Kennedy is there. April, you want to say something about Florida
Yes.
State? That
Y'all, first off, before I do that one, Georgia beat Duke, like a 14 ranked Duke. So that's a huge deal. But Naja Kennedy, before yesterday's game, this girl had a 0.00 ERA going into the last game of regionals. And
Mm.
she's a two-way player, so she's still batting as well. She is so phenomenal. And I don't think people realize how big of a deal it is for you to leave Stanford, which is like top 3 schools in the country, to go in the middle of Lubbock. Like you don't even know where Lubbock is. And this is no
I
shade
don't.
to Texas Tech, but I just need people to understand how big of a deal it is for her to leave Stanford to go and pitch at Texas Tech. So
Mm. It's a
I'm
big deal.
excited to watch her play every time.
I don't know what the athlete unlimited contracts will be. I doubt they will be $1.2 million. So I'm really excited. Obviously, not
And she's just
only
a
and
sophomore.
again, there's so many elements to this story. There's so many elements to this story that are really phenomenal. Texas Tech got a new coach. That new coach
Yes.
was the person that kind of went out and got Kennedy to
Yeah.
come to Texas Tech. They lured her to Texas Tech from Stanford with the promise that she would be a two-way player that gets to hit.
Mhm.
Apparently, as great as she was, apparently Stanford did not want her to hit, so
Yeah.
it was a whole thing
Oof.
there. But the thing that was always in the back of my mind, I was talking to my wife about this as well, is exactly what April said. you don't just up and leave Stanford. It's not like Stanford is a really
Right.
bad softball team. They're a really good softball team.
Right.
And it's obviously
Right.
one of the premier universities in the country. Speaking of the Oregon walk-off, that Oregon walk-off was against Stanford. So
Yes.
Stanford was poised to go back to the Super Regional, and Oregon walked it off in the bottom of the seventh. Really exciting stuff. So Florida State's going to play Texas Tech. Just to close this out, another SEC team, the Texas is going to play in the Austin. They're hosting, by the way. A lot of these SEC teams are hosting.
Mhm.
Texas is in Austin. They're hosting Clemson, which is a very good softball team. Uh, SEC, Tennessee Lady Vols in Knoxville are hosting Nebraska.
Mhm.
That came out of so there was an upset. Nebraska came
Yes.
out because the Texas
LSU
A&M.
and Southeastern lost.
Yep, there it was.
Mm.
And then we go to Columbia, SEC, where South Carolina is going to play UCLA. And then that last one has nothing to do with the SEC in Eugene. That's where the Liberty Flames out of Virginia will go and play Oregon. Those are your super regional matchups. There is
Mhm.
a very good chance that there could be basically an SEC team in Oklahoma City in every one of these super regionals except that Eugene one where Oregon and Liberty are going to play it out. But it is a very dominant conference with the fact that I guess Florida State and Clemson are very good softball teams as well.
Yes.
So it's exciting. This starts Thursday,
Mhm.
this Thursday, the 22nd. So there you have it. You're all caught up as best we can. We talked about Kennedy. We talked about some of the Oklahoma. April, really quickly, before, not to steal your thunder on 10th inning talk, but is there a series that you have your eye on?
Yes, I am definitely looking at this Gainesville series, of course, because Florida is really like that, and Florida's fans show up too. I'm looking at that one. I'm definitely looking at the Austin regional. That one is going to be good. Texas versus Clemson. And I think that everybody just wants to see, can Liberty really continue what they started in regionals? That the small magic that tends to happen that you see with March Madness, people are already calling it the James Madison effect. And I think that that one is going to be a very much so watched regional by a lot of people. And then, of course, everybody's going to be watching Patty Gasso and the OU Sooners because everybody wants to know, can they really make it to 5? So those are going to be my top ones: OU, Bama, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Clemson, and of course, Oregon, Liberty.
I'd be remiss if I did not ask. I don't know if we know the answer to this, but in our Black Power rankings, which one of these teams have the most sisters? I know. I will say this, and I will say this: sisters are a dominant theme throughout the entire regional and super regional. When we talk about Liberty, I believe it's Yoder over there. We talk about Oklahoma; they've got a ton of sisters on their
Yeah.
team. But is there a Black Power ranking? who would be the blackest of the teams?
You got to ask that question.
I honestly, I don't know because I know OU has quite a few. Um, and I can't remember off the top of my head because it's so many. But I know, like yesterday, Liberty's pitcher won the game, and Oregon's the last batter
Yep.
hit the walk off.
Yep.
So those were definitely dynamic. I know that there were some in they ended up.
We'll have.
Excuse me.
Don't worry. We
We'll
will
have
have
more
a
information about that.
we will have a full Black Power ranking coming up
Yes.
Super regionals. Because if there's anything we do here, it's spreadsheets of black players. We enjoy it.
Spreadsheets.
Look. I
I
don't
like
have
it.
one. Well, look. Don't get me wrong. When the baseball regional comes, I've already got the prep work in. I already
Let's
know
go.
who's on every team loaded up. So we
Yeah.
were doing that all throughout the season. So no, this is exciting. And like I said, jokes not jokes. The regionals and super regionals, a lot of the softball teams have higher roster density of African Americans than baseball. We talk about this a lot on the show, but the rosters of a lot of these power softball teams have 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 African American women on their team. So it's really exciting about that, more so than college baseball. So it's exciting to see they're playing big roles. And again, the biggest woman in the sport right now, and
Marissa.
Miss Kennedy is as African American as well, and really changing the tide out there and changing the environment out there at Texas Tech. So,
Yes.
with that said, we're excited about the Super Regionals. It is our time to get out of here. Let's do a quick round robin. You know what? We're gonna do a last plug. If there's something, a player, a team, something you should be watching in black baseball as we go around the horn, Malik, who are you watching? What should we be paying attention to as we get out of here for the good of the order?
Do we have a burgeoning and growing Black Cardinals situation growing?
We
I personally do
Burgeoning.
not. I guess I'm gonna have to go on the record of saying this. I always had an inkling that St. Louis was not the funnest place for Black people to play in. You know, on the lines of Boston. And no matter how many good players they've produced that are Black. But
Right.
I see what they're doing with Jordan Walker. I see what they're doing with Victor Scott. I see how they're trying to bring up Tink Hintz. And I also see the things that they're doing as an organization, and they're winning. Let's
You can't
see.
forget
Let's
Mason
see.
Wynn.
Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn is going to be their leader. And I think he's going to probably be their next extension candidate. So keep an eye on him. I think he might be the next one.
There you go, the black cards. So we got the black Nats, the black Reds,
Cards,
the black cards might be in the order.
If there's
April, what are
three,
you
we
watching?
count
Who
them.
are you watching?
All right, y'all. This week, I'm going to stick with college baseball, and I'm going to tell you to watch, of course, Justin LeBron of the University of Alabama, Anthony Ianson of my alum university, LSU, and gosh, I cannot remember this Tennessee pitcher's name. Another
Philip.
black pitcher for them. Yes, him. So
I
those
got
are going to
spreadsheets. I got spreadsheets on spreadsheets.
yeah, and then of course Georgia, because Georgia got like everybody.
George's
So
got about eight or nine of them. Yep.
yeah, so that would be my pick for you, and these are all SEC teams as well. Make sure you keep a lock on them.
Flo Bito.
Hey,
Who
going
you
into
watching?
it, well, we already had a touch upon this, but on Friday night during the Subway Series, they SNY really went into the whole like the Airbender versus Alonzo Polar Bear, how two different careers had different trajectories. If Devin Williams is really back, and I hate to say it was back because of facing Queens, I want to see that because people have written this guy off.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, he failed up to the Bronx." That's what I'm like. I'm actually maybe watch a Yankees game unironically this week. So that's what I'm looking at right now. See what that Williams can come back, be the airbender we all know who he is.
0 home runs. Lit up by
Zero
Devin
home
Williams,
runs.
the man.
We'll do
Little
this.
victories.
We'll do this for another episode. We'll start pick some players and kind of say trade or no trade. Cedric Mullins is starting to get on that list where it may be time for him to make a move, get out of Baltimore. No, I mean he doesn't have a contract. He doesn't have he doesn't have a contract extension. They lost again tonight as we speak. So now they're 15-31 against the Brewers, and he's playing out of his mind. He's leading the team. Like I'm looking at WAR and I'm looking at home runs and RBIs and defense, and said is playing out of his mind. And so there's an interesting question about at what time do you say, okay, what team could use a left-handed talented center fielder to get him over the hump or be a good part of this. And again, center field's a weird spot. Like, is it like I don't know if you trade you loan set out for a second half of a season to say someone like the LA Dodgers. Are they going to even play Set in center field? Does he get the start? I don't know. I don't know how these things work. So I'm interested in that part. Obviously, I'll continue to watch that closely. We've gone through this whole episode, and I'll be remiss if I don't mention guys like Drake Baldwin,
Yes.
who have been absolutely phenomenal.
Wow.
I wanted to talk more about what Baldwin has done this season as a rookie, but we'll have rookie of the year type discussions as we go through. But if you're not watching Cedric Mullins, if you're not watching Drake Baldwin, if you're not watching when
Byron
he returned
Buxton.
from the IL, Byron Buxton, if you're not watching CJ Abrams and James Wood out in DC, there's just so many JP Crawford because
Yeah.
Byron Buxton, if he's comeback player of the year, JP Crawford's going to give him a run for his money because they're
Mhm.
doing some really, really good stuff out there. So there's a lot of black players to be watching, a lot of teams to be watching. The emergence of some of these teams calling up their African American players. Akil Badu is now in Detroit, roaming the outfield as well. So there's just a lot of positive things that we could take for black baseball fans. And our job here, as always, at the Black Baseball Mixtape, is to not only entertain, but to educate. Our goal is to educate our community about black baseball at as many levels as possible. So guys, thank you. Another great episode in the books. Thank our partners and our sponsors, Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance, Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds, Number Game Scorecards, Minority Prospects, Red, Black, and Green Baseball. Thank you all. If you ever want to contact the show, it is blackbaseballmixtape@gmail.com. With that, see you next time.
Hey, y'all.